limitations. Strip down when you're nasty. You say that you want it, so show me you want it. I say that to say this to you. Let's do what we came here to do. If you feel that comfortable, you ain't gotta go nowhere. 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 Where? You ain't gotta go nowhere. You ain't gotta go nowhere. You ain't gotta go nowhere.
I like that. Although, if you are comfortable, you're going to have to get up out of there. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Oh, yeah. Well, I guess it's the first of the year. Welcome back to the second hour of LoveBabz, LoveTalk. I'm Babz Rawls-Ivy. It is Monday, the 9th. We're marching into MLK weekend, y'all. So get prepared to make all your events. I think they still do the Love March, which it's always, when they do it, it's always very cold. So I haven't done it in many, many years. And so I'm not going to say I'll be there for that. But I do like to get some MLK. My church, when my church was open, we used to read the letters from a Birmingham jail. We used to do that, and I miss doing that. And had I thought about it, I probably could have figured out a way to sort of do it with some folks somewhere and do it. But maybe I'll get Mike Moran to do it next year, and we could handle that. Maybe I'll send him a note. It's like, you know what? You should do an impromptu read of letters from a Birmingham jail for MLK. Like next year, Mike Moran, next year. I don't think you could pull it off now. But you should consider doing it and pull together some folks who could read. Like I know Judge Louis Harper is still on the scene somewhere. You can call him, Cliff Graves. Like there's a bunch of people you could call to get this done. I'm just saying, let's just get it done. But I know, so we're walking into MLK weekend. The Deltas are walking into our sorority anniversary. So, we're well over 100 years now. So, so we are looking back and seeing all our D9 sisters and brothers who are just making their 100th, making their centennial stride. We've been at it for a few years now. But you know what? We're about to have a red takeover. So January 13th. Just be ready. Friday. I don't know where we all gonna be. Figure it out. I had to go party with them somewhere. Show up somewhere and drink red cocktails. And do a little stroll around the room somewhere. So we'll see. Our Founders Day is coming up, and we get ready for that, and we'll be in these streets all over the world. There'll be red streets everywhere. So January walks us into Black History Month, and then Black History Month and Valentine's Day, love of Black people, love in general, love of all things. So it's my favorite time. Anyway, so yeah. Let's get into it a little bit. Maybe we'll run the speeches of MLK on Friday. We'll do that. Or Monday. Well, Monday is a holiday, so we won't be here on Monday, I don't think. Unless Harry runs the speeches all day. I'm a big believer that people should hear these speeches. If this is your only time that you're going to hear these speeches, then you should hear them in their entirety and not just snippets of the speeches, because they are amazing. They are uplifting. They are inspiring. And it reminds us just how far we've come. and how much further we still have to go for equality in all things. So if you've not heard any of the MLK speeches, I think you could just Google them on YouTube, right there on YouTube. But if you have not, I would invite you to spend some time, sit and spend some time reading and listening to the speeches. I think I have a book of all the speeches, and then Strength of Love is my favorite book. It's the first book he ever wrote. And then I have The Beloved Community from Chaos to Community. So I have that. I might read from that this week. That'd be a good idea. And so maybe I'll pull all my MLK books and every day get a little something of the MLK vibe, as a matter of fact, because I think it's worth everything to sort of hear these speeches. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to look up letters from, I don't think I have them. I don't think I have them on me, but I don't think I have the book. I might. But you could pull it up. It is a bit of a read. But if we could do it in concert with each other, as we used to do in my church, and Letter from a Birmingham Jail was written April 16th, 1963, which is April 16th, my sister's birthday. But I was born shortly after this in 1963. So this letter is as old as I am. So it's a 60-year-old letter. My dear fellow clergymen, while confined here in the Birmingham City Jail, I came across your recent statement calling my present activities unwise and untimely. Seldom do I pause to answer criticism of my work and ideas. If I sought to answer all the criticisms that crossed my desk, my secretaries would have little time for anything other than such correspondence in the course of the day. And I would have no time for constructive work. But since I feel that you are men of genuine goodwill and that your criticisms are sincerely set forth, I want to try to answer your statement in which I hope will be patient and reasonable terms. I think I should indicate why I am here in Birmingham, since you have been influenced by the view which argues against outsiders coming in. I have the honor of serving as president of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, an organization operating in every Southern state with headquarters in Atlanta, Georgia. We have some 85 affiliated organizations across the South, and one of them is the Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights. Frequently, we share staff, educational and financial resources with our affiliates. Several months ago, the affiliate here in Birmingham asked us to be on call to engage in a nonviolent direct action program if such were deemed necessary. We call to engage in a nonviolent direct action program if such were deemed necessary. We readily consented. And when the hour came, we lived up to our promise. So I, along with several members of my staff, are here because I was invited here. I am here because I have organizational ties here. But more basically, I am in Birmingham because injustice is here. Just as the prophets of the 8th century BC left their villages and carried their "Thus saith the Lord" far beyond the boundaries of their hometown. And just as the Apostle Paul left his village of Tarsus and carried the gospel of Jesus Christ to the far corners of the Greco-Roman world, so am I compelled to carry the gospel of freedom beyond my own hometown. Like Paul, I must constantly respond to the Macedonian call for aid. Moreover, I am cognizant of the interrelatedness of all communities and states. I cannot sit idly by in Atlanta and not be concerned about what happens in Birmingham. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Never again can we afford to live with the narrow, provincial, outside agitator idea. Anyone who lives inside the United States can never be considered an outsider anywhere within its bounds. You deplore the demonstration taking place in Birmingham, but your statement, I am sorry to say, fails to express a similar concern for the conditions that brought about the demonstrations. I am sure that none of you would want to rest content with the superficial kind of social analysis that deals merely with effects and does not grapple with underlying causes. It is unfortunate that demonstrations are taking place in Birmingham, but it is even more unfortunate that the city's white power structure left the Negro community with no alternative. In any nonviolent campaign, there are 4 basic steps. Collection of the facts to determine whether injustice exists, negotiation, self-purification, and direct action. We have gone through all of these steps in Birmingham. There can be no gainsaying the fact that racial injustice engulfs this community. Birmingham is probably the most thoroughly segregated city in the United States. Its ugly record of brutality is widely known. Negroes have experienced grossly unjust treatment in the courts. There have been more unsolved bombings of Negro homes and churches in Birmingham than in any other city in the nation. These are hard, brutal facts of the case. On the basis of these conditions, Negro leaders sought to negotiate with the city fathers, but the latter consistently refused to engage in good faith negotiations. Then, last September, came the opportunity to talk with leaders of Birmingham's economic community. In the course of these negotiations, certain promises were made by the merchants, for example, to remove the store's humiliating racial signs. On the basis of these promises, the Reverend Fred Shuttleworth and the leaders of the Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights agreed to a moratorium on all demonstrations. As the weeks and months went by, we realized that we were the victims of a broken promise. A few signs, briefly removed, returned. The others remained. As in so many past experiences, our hopes had been blasted, and the shadow of deep disappointment settled upon us. We had no alternative except to prepare for direct action, whereby we would present our very bodies as a means of laying our case before the conscience of the local and national community. Mindful of the difficulties involved, we decided to undertake a process of self-purification. We began a series of workshops on nonviolence, and we repeatedly asked ourselves, are you able to accept blows without retaliating? Are you able to endure the ordeal of jail? We decided to schedule our direct action program for the Easter sermon, realizing that except for Christmas, this is the main shopping period of the year. Knowing that a strong economic withdrawal program would be by the product of these direct actions, we felt that this would be the best thing to bring pressure to bear on the merchants for the needed change. Then it occurred to us that Birmingham's mayoral election was coming up in March, and we speedily decided to postpone action until after Election Day, when we discovered that the Commissioner of Public Safety, Eugene Bull Connor, had piled up enough votes to be in the runoff. We decided again to postpone action until the day after the runoff, so that we waited to see Mr. Connor defeated. And to this end, we endured postponement after postponement. Having aided in this community need, we felt that our direct actions program could be delayed no longer. You may well ask, why direct action? Why sit-ins, marches, and so forth? Isn't negotiation a better path? You are quite right in calling for negotiation indeed. This is the very purpose of direct action. Nonviolent direct action seeks to create such a crisis and foster such a tension that a community which has constantly refused to negotiate is forced to confront the issue. It seeks to dramatize the issue that it can no longer be ignored. By citing the creation of tension as part of the work of the nonviolent resistor may sound rather shocking, but I must confess that I am not afraid of the word tension. I have earnestly opposed violent tension, but there's a type of constructive nonviolent tension which is necessary for growth, just as Socrates felt that it was necessary to create a tension in the mind so that individuals could rise from the bondage of myth and half-truths to the unfettered realm of creative analysis and objective appraisal. So must we see the need for nonviolent gadflies to create the kind of tensions in society that will help men rise from the dark depths of prejudice and racism to the majestic heights of understanding and brotherhood. The purpose of our direct action program is to create a situation so crisis-packed that it will inevitably open the door to negotiation. I therefore concur with you in your call for negotiation. Too long has your beloved Southland been bogged down in tragic effort to live in monologue rather than dialogue. One of the basic points in your statement is that action that I and my associates have taken in Birmingham is untimely. Some have said, why didn't you give the new city administration time to act? The only answer that I can give to this query is that the new Birmingham administration must be prodded about as much as the outgoing one before it will act. We are sadly mistaken if we feel that the election of Albert Boutwell as mayor will bring the millennium to Birmingham. While Mr. Boutwell is a much more gentle person than Mr. Connor, they are both segregationists, dedicated to maintenance of the status quo. I have hope that Mr. Boutwell would be reasonable enough to see the futility of massive resistance to desegregation. But he will not, he will not see this without pressure from devotees of civil rights. My friends, I must say to you that we have made a single gain in civil rights. We have not made a single gain in civil rights without determined legal nonviolent pressure. Lamentedly, it is historical fact that privileged groups seldom give up their privilege voluntarily. Individuals may see the moral fight and voluntarily give up their unjust posture, but as a Reinhold Niebuhr has reminded us, groups tend to be more immoral than individuals. So if you not read the letters from Birmingham jail, it is a wonderful tome on thinking about how the intersection of nonviolence and tension sit, like where they meet, and how the using of nonviolence as a tool to put tension, to bring people to a negotiating table, was the first resort. Like they didn't just, this is a period of time where conversation was had, asks were made, invitation handed out, and the changing of administrations and the holidays, and no time is the right time. No time is a good time. So there's an election and then a runoff election. And so how long? Not long. So you get some insight into the movements of the day, the movements of that moment, the movements of how people were doing all that they can to sort of further the ends of civil rights. It's one of my favorite things to read. It's long, but it's a wonderful, wonderful, and I dare say I don't want people to get lost or lose sight of reading these kinds of things and listening to these speeches as we move away from them historically. You know, this was written 60 years ago. And I don't want to lose sight of them. You know, of course, you can find them online. They've been digitized, and then some people will drag some of it out. The more progressive ones will drag it out for MLK weekend. But I say it ought to be required reading everywhere, in every place of academic institution, in every academic institution, you know, and not just collegiate, but, you know, at the high school and the middle school, that they should have some familiarity with the text and tone of this document. You know, that's the least we can do. That is the very least that we can do, so that we don't lose sight of what the battle was, so that we don't lose sight at what was at stake and what is still at stake. It is the same fight, boys and girls. We are still in that same place of leveling playing fields. We are in that same place of equality. We are in that same place of ensuring voters have a right, and people have a right to vote. We are still in that space. And 60 years later, here we are. We're still in that space. We're still raising these conversations. We're still battling a Supreme Court. We're still battling lower courts. We're still battling systemic racism and white supremacy. We're still battling these things. They have not gone away. And even though We have gotten comfortable with a lot of games. We better get uncomfortable with all those gains that are being eroded. And by eroded, I mean deliberately snatched. And so if you don't believe that, then you were not paying attention to the 15 votes that it took to get that white supremacist Kevin McCarthy elected as Speaker of the House. I mean, it was something to behold, you know. So the fight is very real. The clear and present danger is very real. And I know one thing, that they want nothing but to undo all these gains of the last 60 to 100 years. And I don't think we want to go back to what it was like 60 to 100 years ago. We can't go back. So I'm inviting people to sort of take a deeper dive into MLK celebrations. Take a deeper dive. You know, read and spend some time in the words of this. Sit and live with these words for their time. Yes, go and hear the choirs and the preaching and all that, but listen and then pay attention and then look around and see where any of this still applies. And I know you, like me, will say everywhere. You will say everywhere. Everywhere. We have a responsibility to continue the fight, to pick up the torch and carry the fight. And, you know, as I tell people, all politics are local. So the fight really is at your city government. The fight really is in your board of eds. The fight really is with your city councils and board of alders. That's where the fighting is. The fight is where, you know, what does your police department look like? You know, what does your fire department look like? You know, who has access? Is access equitable and inclusive? Do you know what I mean? The fight is amongst us. It is on the streets, you know, and maybe people are not marching in droves in a way that they did 60 to 100 years ago. But I dare say there are people in all halls of life doing what they can to further this work. So what did Martin Luther King say? You can be great. All you have to do is serve. Paraphrase. We all can be great. All you have to do is serve. And serve means concern yourself with what is going on with your neighbors, what is going on in your community. By serve, I mean have some input and influence in things that affect your everyday practical lives. So while, yes, a president ought to be chosen, and we love to get behind that, your government, your everyday practical life is local, and the fight is local. And you got to get it, you got to get into it. So write your letters, send postcards, call, show up to meetings. Now they got meetings that are both in person and virtual. So you could tap into what is happening in your community meetings virtually and be at home doing what you got to do. Use the technology. And if they're not doing that, say something to them. Hey, there's a bunch of folks at home who would appreciate being in on these meetings. Can we live stream this? And all it takes is somebody with a damn good iPhone or something and stream it. That's not a heavy lift. You know, back in the old days, you had to get all the camera equipment. And listen, I used to work at Citizens Television Public Access. So I know what it was like to set up remote camera equipment somewhere and run stuff. Oh, now it's listen, I can stream so much with this little baby. So much. So I could shoot a whole movie. This is a film crew. This is an investigative reporting tool. It's an entertainment tool. It's a communication tool. It's a calendar. It's my assistant. It's all the things. It's all the things. So you don't have to be without this. You don't have to be without. You can have access. So if you've not, as we march into MLK weekend, every day I'm going to just read a little something, and because I know the Beinecke's got something going on with the African American Historical Society, and they've got some of MLK collections. So the library has some stuff that they're going to put on display that highlights the collection at the Beinecke of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the African American Freedom Movement. So it'll be in the courtyard, at the courtyard level reading room. So, and if you've never been to the Beinecke, it's one of my favorite places to go. It's a great place to have a date. I don't know. I'm a little weird. I'm one of these people. I like interesting places for dates, and I like people to come at me and with interesting places to go for dates. And the Beinecke is one of my favorites, and so is Jazz Vespers at St. Paul and St. James over there in Olive and Chapel. I was saying to my Kaplan family, I've had many a good date there over the years. Because first of all, I love jazz. Second of all, I like being in churches because I like the acoustics in a church and the moodiness and the divinity of a church. And so you put my favorite things together, divinity and jazz, woo, jackpot. But anyway, on MLK, on this MLK day, the Beinecke is going to be having a display, and you should come. And it's Monday, so from 12 to 4. So it's not going to interrupt with your MLK plans. If you have plans, just park somewhere and stroll over to the Beinecke, take a look at these things, and then go on to wherever you want to go and participate. I don't really have a plan about what I'm going to do for MLK Day. I tend to sort of hang back a little bit from all the hoopla. But who knows what I'll get into. I'm definitely going to make my way over to the Beinecke because one is one of my favorite places to go, and I never miss the opportunity to be in that space. And two, I think it's time for us to once again revisit the words and the meditations of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. So every day this week, I'm marching up to it. I'll have something to say about it. I have something to say about MLK and what that means, as well as, talk up the ladies of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated as we come to our Founders Day. As we come to our Founders Day. Wednesday, I'm going to have Anthony the Boogeyman Rucker on. And he's going to talk about his extraordinary life. And if you don't know, he is from Ohio, and he is an artist, a former hip hop MC, and he's going to come on and talk about, his work and the movie that he's been in, and the piece that he just the love letter to James Baldwin called Dear James. It's a poetic love letter. And I'm looking forward to talking to him. He's in California, and he is a doctoral intern therapist in clinical psychology. So I'm looking forward to having him on Wednesday. I think that'll be a lively discussion. And as you know, hip hop is turning 50 this year. So long live hip hop. So I'm on my way out, boys and girls. I will be back. Be back tomorrow with some other conversation. Y'all be good. Be safe out here in these streets. All right. Don't hurt nobody. And thank you, Paul, for the word on the street. Thanks, Harry, for getting everything running. I'll see y'all tomorrow.
If you feel that comfortable, you ain't gotta go nowhere. 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 If you feel that comfortable, our space is set up to say nothing. That's all that we need to be. So born in a good situation. So go and get next to me. You say that you want it, you show me you want it. I say that to say this to you. Cause I'll give it all to you. You. If you feel that comfortable, you ain't gotta go nowhere. 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 You ain't gotta go nowhere.
Hi, this is Babz Rawls-Ivy, New Haven, Connecticut, and you're listening to WNHHLP 103.5